So, welcome to this, the fourth part in the chicken coop build. If you remember, I left you last week with putting the featherboard on the outside of the front of the coop. And here I'm just working on the surround before I put in the sliding mechanism for the door. So it's a very simple design for the door, very basic chicken coop design. 2 rails above an open gap, obviously the door, and a slide in and out. So I spent quite a long time making this door, only for it to in fact not work when it was put together. So I quickly knocked up another door, which I'll show you later in the video. I know initially I said on the last video this was going to be the last one, but there is going to be one more video in this series, video number 5, because it actually took me 10 days to make this coop, and cutting all the footage down, even speeding it up like I am doing, is still quite a lot. So I want to spend some proper time putting the coop together and showing you exactly what I did. So the last video, next week's video, will be the last one, I absolutely promise you, and there'll be no pocket holes in it either. So here I'm just painting on, putting on the last bottom bit before I start working on the rails for the mechanism. So my original plan for the door was to make a piece of wood combined from some pallet wood, which is what you can see me do here. I bought this biscuit router. It was one of the first things. It was just a complete whim buy. It was one of my first woodworking projects. I made some radiator covers in the house, and obviously out of MDF they're much better with some biscuits in them. And having tried to make one without a machine, I thought, no, I'm going to spend the £40 it was, and I got this Erbauer unit, which is actually pretty good. I did make a bit of a mistake here. See if you can guess it. Also, I didn't realise when I filmed it that most of this is hands above the camera, but you sort of get the idea. If you haven't spotted it already, there I go. Yep, I only put holes in one side of the door. I did tell you all the way through that my projects are going to involve all the mistakes. Trust me, there are plenty of them, in the hope that some of you, if you're doing the same thing, won't make the same mistakes that I did. So after I'd finished putting it together, I clamped it all up. I do find using these clamps a bit awkward. They're fantastic clamps, don't get me wrong. They're I think they're Screwfix own brand. They're called Magnuson, I think. And I picked these two up really cheaply, but I do find that the little pin slips out and the end slides back and forth, which is more the user error than anything else, I would say. So after it was glued, I chucked some heavy cans of paint on it, and then I waited for it to dry. And when it was dry, as you can see in this picture, I just put a batten across it to keep it nice and tight, and also that batten was going to form the other part of the mechanism, which is just a simple pull arm just to get the door on and open and closed. Just screwing it down now, and everything I did on this, nearly everything I made, I pre-drilled a hole on everything, and most of the screws are all countersunk with the holes that I've drilled. But I think it's really important to do that, especially with something like the chicken coop. You don't want to risk having any screws or any heads proud. So that was what I did. Then I gave it a quick coat of paint. Quite good paint this. It's the Fence Plus sort of 1+ paint in grey. Goes on really, really well. Doesn't take a huge amount of time to dry either, which is quite useful because I was in a bit of a hurry. You can't see it, but there were some really, really dark clouds overhead, and I wanted to try and get it done before it started absolutely bucketing down, which I almost managed to do. After that, I went back to the dreaded roof, which really is the bane of my existence. I really had a lot of trouble with this roof. I'm not sure if I've conveyed that enough from the first video, but this time I wanted to make sure that at least the felt wasn't going to come off from the bottom side, so I spent quite a long time pinning it with a hammer. I got a really good hammer. I think I might have mentioned this in the previous video. It was just a little one, a little pin hammer, but it was absolutely fantastic, and it certainly got a workout hitting all of these pins in, because I really went to town and put tons in. After I'd done that, I then went back to the sort of structure of the roof, and I started putting wood in. I'm not sure if I've said this all the way through, excuse me if I am repeating myself, but the vast majority of wood that you can see me using here that doesn't look brand new, and I did use quite a lot of brand new wood stud-work timber, but the rest of it all came from pallets, and I didn't actually even put them through the thickness of planer. I literally just found a couple of pallets that were new, and I managed to chop them down, and you got some really good wood out of them, some quite substantial wood. So when I'd done that, it was time for the first, what I'm going to call dry fit. So the weather cleared up, so I laid out the base, and I wanted to make sure that everything fitted properly, and I also wanted to make sure that when it was all together, I could see if there are any sort of immediate problems that were going to come up in the future. So I just placed it all out, got some clamps, and I clamped it all together. And I have to say, I was quite impressed when it was finished. I was feeling quite, patting myself on the back, feeling quite good that I'd managed to get it all to fit together in a dry fit. Sadly, that feeling was lost when I did it properly. But you'll see that in the next and the final video. And the other thing which I should have paid a bit more attention to here and didn't was the gap that you can see there between the side and the end. You can see that gap sort of facing you. That gap actually turned out to be a bit more of a problem when I finally installed it, to do with the fact I'd misjudged the sizes. But the good thing about doing the dry fit is you get to pick up on all those sorts of problems, which is obviously why you do it. Yeah, so as you can tell, feeling very pleased with myself. After I'd done that, I just moved on to putting a sort of edging batten in to the top section of the roof. Now, this bit is actually going to be left open on either end, and as you'll see later, I made a sort of a vent really, but it was very ad hoc. I hadn't planned to do it. I just thought it would be quite a nice way of either putting it in or putting more air in or taking more air out, depending. Had some of the chicken wire left over that I'd used on the base, so I thought I might as well just use it out and put a vent in. I didn't use the table saw a huge amount during this project, I have to be honest, but it was very, very useful. It's brand new, this table saw. I've only had it a couple of weeks before I started the build. This is probably only the first time I'd really used it. It's an Evolution one, the Rage 3 I think it is, but really, really good. I might do a video on that in the future, because it's one of the things that improved my woodworking massively. After I did that, I got out the trusty stapler and off we went, and I stapled. Quite a lot of staples, but in my defense, the one thing you won't see in this video is pocket holes. I didn't do any pocket holes on one of the days of the build, strangely enough. After I'd done that, I then moved on to the door, and along with the roof, the door gave me probably the biggest set of problems of any of the things on here. I made the original outside frame you would have seen in the last video, and then I made this inner frame. Now, I used it from salvage wood. It was an old sort of butcher's block sort of trolley, kitchen trolley from IKEA, and the wood is rock solid. I don't know what wood they used, but it was rock hard, so I thought, oh, that'll be a good thing to use. So I made it and made the inside frame and made all the attachments, and then when I went to offer it up, it didn't fit, which was incredibly frustrating because I had correctly measured everything out and cut it all exactly to length, but it was a bit annoying. So I made a few adjustments, and as you'll see later, I got it to fit in the end. So after I'd fitted the door in place, I just attached the screws. You'll see later I replaced these hinges. I got these hinges specifically because they're big and they can take a lot of weight. I had bought some much cheaper outdoor hinges on in Lidl, on one of the middle of the Lidl aisles. They just had some sort of random door furniture and sort of gate furniture one weekend, and I picked them up and they were £2.99. I thought, oh, you know what will happen, I'll buy these, I'll never use them, and they'll still be in a packet in a year's time. And then lo and behold, when it came to changing the door, I thought, oh, do you know what? when I went to Lille that time, I picked up some hinges. So I had some much, much better hinges to replace, and you'll see them in a minute. But getting this door together, how it looks now, you would never think of the problems to come. Oh no, yes, there were quite a lot of problems to come. So when I did that, I offered it up along with the help of Mrs. B, and as I said, it looks absolutely smashing, doesn't it? You'd think, wow, that looks so good. It just didn't work. So here I just offered it up. I clamped it at first to make sure that it did work, and then I just got a couple of screws and put a couple of screws in to keep it sort of fixed together in the frame. They were only temporary screws, and I took them out afterwards. And look, it even folds flat, completely vertically flat. But you can tell from the look on my face, there's a couple of things I'm just not happy about. One of them is we managed to block the camera here, so huge apologies for that. But I did say at the beginning of these videos they're going to be warts and all, and there are a lot of occasions where I managed to block the camera, and this is one of them. So I fixed it in, just got a couple of screws either side. There we are, blocking the camera, so you can't see anything. And the door shut, or so I thought. Now, that is the end of this video. Shorter, I know, but join in us again for next week's video, where we are going to complete the coop, I promise. Thanks for watching. Happy woodworking.